Welcome to The Slate, a podcast where we talk to local filmmakers and their experiences throughout the years. Joining us today is Kate Robertson Pryor. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here.
Yay! Thank you so much. I'm just super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Absolutely.
We got a lot to ask.
It was great getting to see and know you all at the Omaha Film Festival recently.
Yes,
so
yes,
I was
wonderful.
just so excited when you reached out to have me
Yes.
come join and talk to you on your podcast.
Yeah, it was
Fantastic.
good to see you too. It was we had a lot of fun shooting stuff. For
Lots of dresses.
You looked fantastic.
Thank you.
Every night.
Thank you so much.
photos were good.
I really think that it is such an honor and a privilege every time that I'm in a film, and especially when it's screened on a theater screening in front of hundreds of people. And so I just always want to dress the way I feel about that. And
Right.
so,
Good.
so that's
Well, we appreciate it as well because you look fantastic today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I assume you're not originally from Omaha, right?
I'm not. I'm originally from Tennessee and lived in Tennessee my entire life until, I traveled all over the country with previous jobs and such, but had never lived outside of Tennessee until we got stationed here for my husband's Air Force assignment.
Sure. Okay.
So I just knew when we were waiting on our assignment for the military, I just had this feeling that we were going to Florida.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
just felt like I knew this is where God's going to send us. I just feel this. So you can imagine my surprise when we got an email that said, you're going to Bellevue, Nebraska.
Whoa.
It's not Florida. Yeah,
I cried profusely.
Okay.
Because I thought I was just going to be stuck in the middle of a cornfield somewhere, and it was really just all out of ignorance. I didn't know anything really about Nebraska. I'd never been to Nebraska. And then I dried my tears and got on the old Google and started looking up the city and saw, it's like over 1 million people in the area of Omaha, Bellevue, and surrounding areas. It's like a real city.
Yeah.
We're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine.
Right. And it's understandable. It's valid though. Especially if you don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
It's there are a lot of cornfields.
There are, but
Just, not here.
to our surprise, Omaha is a lot more hilly, especially it through downtown Omaha and Bellevue, right on that Nebraska-Iowa state line. We've biked and it is not
you feel
super
it.
flat.
Right. You definitely feel it. Yeah.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So deployment is what brought you here.
Well, not deployment, but our assignment.
Assignment, right?
Yeah.
Sure. And when was that?
So that was July of 2018.
Okay, so that's just recently. Okay.
So 5 years this July we've been here. And as far as my kind of quick story about, how I got into the acting community here and such, I kind of have the typical and not so typical actor, entertainer story. I grew up performing. I was doing plays for the neighborhood and my parents' friends from the time I was 3 years old and producing, bossing everybody around, telling them you're gonna have this part, you're gonna
Right. So as a young kid in Tennessee, you're doing this.
Yes, yeah. And then I grew up as a dancer. I was classically trained, danced since I was 3 years old, and then danced collegiately for 4 years at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
All right.
And I was trained vocally, and I was in a competitive show choir. We were Glee before there was Glee.
Wow.
And so entertaining was always part of who I was. And then my family, always very supportive, super supportive of anything I did. My mom carted us around all of our activities growing up. But when it came to college and, what I was going to do after that, it was just this, in Tennessee, we just didn't have people who were acting professionally and who were writing and filming professionally. So there was this, it's great that you got, you're dancing in college and that, you've done this, but you need to get a real job, afterwards. And so my family was very business. So that's what I did. And out of college, I got a really glamorous business job for a company out of New York, and I was based in Nashville, and I traveled all over the country. I worked with country music stars, some of my favorites like Eric Church and Dierks Bentley, Jared Neiman, Randy Houser. And then that all came to a crashing halt. They let go like 250 employees right before Christmas.
Wow.
And so then I ended up going to very humbly tucking my tail and going to work for my younger sister in a much less glamorous job.
Humility is good?
Yes,
Is it good?
yes. I really at first kind of felt like it was a punishment. My dad and sister owned and ran gas stations.
Okay.
Oh, well.
My dad started with one. He also got fired after he got laid off. That's the same for me. Right before Christmas, after he'd been with the company for like 12 years. And he had 3 daughters and a wife, and he was like, what am I going to do? And it turns out he ended up, starting with 1, and then he built to 4, and then my sister came on with number 4, and then when I came back after I'd started, they told me, when I said, well, I've had all this business experience, I had 50 employees that worked and reported to me at all times.
Wow.
I was running these big events all over the country. I was like, well, I can manage the stations. I can do that. And so I asked them, and they were like, nope, you can start at the bottom for $7.25 an hour, cleaning toilets and trash cans, and work your way up. So
Serious humility, sure.
tucked that tail. We're again working for my younger sister, and I did it. And I, at the time, it kind of felt like a punishment. I was like, God, my faith has always been really important to me. I'm a Christian, and I, was like, why are you punishing me? What did I do to deserve this? And now I realize that it was really one of the best things that ever happened to me. And the business aspect that I learned how to run these businesses from the ground up and from the inside out. And, also I would have never had the respect of any of the employees had I just walked in and didn't know how to do or wasn't willing to do the dirty work.
Sure.
And let me tell you, gas station bathrooms are dirty.
Oh,
that is dirty work.
I know it is. I know. Yeah.
So I worked my way up to eventually partner and work alongside my sister.
Okay.
And I helped do the acquisition and take on stores 5 and 6. So we ended up having 6 total stores that we ran.
Good for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And then my husband, who we both grew up in the same town, his name's William. My name's Kate. We're the hashtag US William and Kate.
Gotcha.
He is my prince. We had been friends growing up since we were in like middle school and went to the same church, and we were church camp counselors together, and we went to the same middle school and high school. And so we had only been friends. We'd never crossed any friendship boundary, although he said he's been in love with me since the first time he met me.
Okay.
And it just took him 16 years to get his first date.
Okay, that's a while.
He says, you can break out of the friend zone. Right. But we started dating in 2014, and we got engaged in 2016 and married in 2017.
All right.
And so
and moved to Nebraska.
So then I had to partner. My majority of partnership came out of the business because if you're not there, you can't do a whole lot. And so at that time, I felt God saying, this is your time. This is what I created you for. Everything that you've done leading up to, all the business, all the marketing, all the things that you have experience in now are going to propel you in this next chapter of your life. And you were created to be an artist. You were created to be an actor and filmmaker. I'm about to open doors for you. Get ready to run through them. So that's what I've been doing. When I got here, I Googled acting coach.
Okay. All right.
And
what'd you come up with?
So it was just another total God thing.
Right.
My acting coach had just moved here not too long ago from Burbank, California. She had been acting for over 10 years in Hollywood. She's a SAG actor. And she was teaching there in Burbank as well as acting too. And so she ended up here because her husband's job moved them here. Mm-hmm. And she thought, I can teach anywhere. Let's give it a go. Let's try it out. And so I was one of her first students here. Oh, yeah. And I told her, where I felt, God was leading me. And, she was willing to link arms and hit the ground running with me. And that's what we did. So her name's Nicole Callahan, and I really...
Oh, sure. 402.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so I really feel like, she's the one who helped me really get started. And
good for you.
Yeah, and so now I've trained with a bunch of other coaches as well down in Atlanta and out in LA. Okay. I was actually just down in Atlanta for a 6-week actor intensive, and that was amazing. And I started the year also in a leadership and personal development course. I really feel like as a filmmaker, it's important to be a good leader. When you're on set as a producer, you are a leader. And so I like to really hone those skills and make sure that I'm able to fulfill that role when needed, because I started acting and now it's crazy, in the time that I started, I've now been in over 40 TV and film productions.
40.
Yeah. And I've produced 6 shorts and a feature. So
wow, so let me ask, and I don't mean to interrupt, but is this your full-time job? Like most of the people we talk to, at least at this stage, and we kind of divide things up, but a lot of them, they have a day job. This is something they're doing on the side, or they're in school. This is something they're doing on the side. I mean, you're traveling, you're attending acting
God
seminars
has
and stuff.
made it to where at this point in my life, I'm able to do this and focus on this full time. I do have some, I'm also a certified fitness instructor. I have 3 nationally accredited fitness certifications. Okay. So I have done that as well to kind of, help supplement. Sure. And I'm a military spouse, so I've been training and working with teens, women who are dependents. Right. And just kind of, I've worked with them on body image, positive body image, and showing them how to create a routine that is something that they can stay consistent with, and showing them how to use equipment and feel comfortable with that and feel comfortable in their bodies. And that's just, it's so important to be filled with that positivity, especially at that very impressionable age. Yeah. So that's something that's been a passion of mine. Good for you. Yeah. And then I also, I've done all kinds of things too. I had a pet sitting business called Priority Pet. Wow. Spelled like my last name, Pryority. Sure. Nice. Yeah. So I'm just continue to be a little entrepreneur, as much as I can. Totally. Yeah. And then I just finished my first 25,000 word book that is going to go to Audible. Hopefully sometime in the next month or 2. Okay. All right. And it'll be hardback on Amazon as well. So
if I was to ask you what you say, everybody, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Would you, if I said, what do you do? What would you say?
I say that I am an actor and filmmaker.
Beautiful. That's good. Yeah. That, and so as you mentioned, it really is fortunate to be able to do that, because a lot of the people we see, even that we came across through the festival, they still have some other, most of them are saying, well, I have to do this to meet the obligations, I have to do that, and what you're talking about, the continued investment in your craft, attending these seminars, teaching, finding mentors, that's all such a big piece of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unless you have time to do that or make time to do that, a lot of people seem to miss out on that aspect of it. So I love that you're doing that. I love that.
Thank you. I'm a big advocate of training. I think that there's a lot of actors that rely on just their, bachelor degree, that they went to drama school or a program, and they haven't or don't continue to do some sort of classes. Right. And I just feel like you can tell when they don't. And so I just think that we're always improving and working on our craft, and being in class is just such a great way to continue to hone that. For sure. Yeah. So I love class. I also really need it. I feel like I was really disappointed when I first started training specifically for acting, because I thought God has given me this provision for this career, and he's affirmed it and reaffirmed it. I'm going to be good at this.
Sure.
And I started, and I was like, oh, I'm terrible. I'm not good at this.
Right.
I'm not good at this.
Right.
What is happening? And so I have had to train and work really, really hard, and I continue to. I mean, when I started with classes, I was putting in like 30 hours a week, and I still, with my training and my networking and my auditions, I'm still putting in at least 30 hours a week outside of filming. And so I have had to work really, really hard and continue to do so. And when I've gotten compliments from people who've watched my work and they're like, oh, it's so natural, you do such a great job, you look so I'm like, thank you. You have no idea how much that means, because I had to work really hard for that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and continue to do so.
I think that, like with anything else, there's always something to learn. And the more you practice, if you really want to get good at it, you need to continue to practice. And I think, I can't speak from experience, but even going all the way up the, level of different varying levels of success, the further you get, the more you need to continue to develop that craft.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the top people in the industry are still training and getting coaching. And, talking about practice, I think that's one of the most misquoted quotes of all time, that practice makes perfect. It's actually perfect practice makes perfect.
Sure.
And, I think it's important to pursue things with excellence. And that's how I really try to pursue my craft and my projects. I've never just, I said I've produced 6 shorts and a feature. And I've never gone into a project that I've produced or acted in where I was just like, well, I'm just going to do this. And I just want to have say I've done it or have a product to show. We'll just try it out. Like, maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. I set my intentions for everything that I do. That goal is excellence. And I might not hit the mark. There's several times where I feel like I haven't quite hit that mark, but that's my goal. I've never walked into it like, well, let's just try this out, or I'll just shoot something to shoot something. Let's just shoot it to have it. It's like, no, my goal is excellence. Now, might not hit the mark, but that's always my goal. And to do it with, pursue that with kindness along the way. That's a really big thing for me, and part of what I feel like I've been called to do as an actor and filmmaker is to pursue this path with excellence and kindness. So
that's a good addition. It's a good addition.
Definitely.
I think. Yeah.
It's one the industry needs.
Oh, I agree. Not just the industry, people in general. Right across
the more kindness we can have, the better.
Absolutely.
A couple things, because we say that practice makes permanent, and so adding that perfection piece to it, if you're just practicing for the sake of practicing, you can easily practice bad behaviors and they will become permanent behaviors. But like you, setting goals, making things measurable, visualizing it, attaining it. Again, those I think are such important pieces that, I don't hear that often, which stands out. I think it says something. Yeah.
I really feel like I'm a firm believer in, like I said, like putting in the work, doing the leadership classes, and then also, and that goes a little bit outside of the scope of acting and that kind of training. But I just really subscribe to the saying of like, evolve so hard that you have to reintroduce yourself to people. And if I didn't hit the mark on that, pursuing something with kindness, because we're all imperfect people, none of us are perfect. And if that was the goal and I didn't hit that mark, with someone or something, I hope that they can see that I've evolved more from that moment and from yesterday. I've learned from that and evolved, and so allow me to reintroduce myself.
Oh, I love it. Right? Yeah, I love that.
And let's move on with kindness.
Absolutely. Yeah, we put up a video on our channel a while back that talks about dying to self every day and being reborn again the next day. Learning new skills. It speaks to that exact same thought process that you're talking about. So, let's switch gears a little bit. Tell me about you've mentioned 6 shorts, and so you came to Nebraska right to work, right?
Yeah.
So and the pandemic hits. Even with all of that, you've done 40. You've been in 40 different projects, and that's a lot, right? So I'm trying to do the math, but it's going to be ugly on camera for me doing that math. Which I think we lost our camera.
It's all right. We'll keep it rolling for the sake of the podcast.
All right. Talk to me about the projects that you've produced and kind of how those came to be. I'm particularly interested in the feature project you produced, but I'm just still trying to get my head around 40 projects in this little span of time. What have I been doing since 2018? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. That's how it became a full-time thing for me because,
it has to be.
And I was really pursuing it to where I was getting the work. But then when I felt like I wasn't getting the work, I said, well, I got to create it. And so my first short that I did was one called Deployed.
Okay.
Imagine that as a military spouse.
Yeah. All right.
So it's a short film comedy about all of the things that tend to go wrong as soon as your military spouse deploys. There's kind of this whole Murphy's Law of deployment, kind of everything that can and will go wrong will. And so how that really started was my coach at the time, Nicole. In our class, she was like, "You all, if you're not going to get hired for things and or the things you want, like you got to write it." So she was like, "Do it." So I was like, "Okay." So I started creating the idea of what I wanted to do because they always say write what you know. So what I know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Military spouse. So I that's when this is the biggest part, I think, and the biggest piece to filmmaking and the community is just surrounding yourself with the people that you want to work with and that you aspire to be like or aspire to, have the kind of projects that they do. And I had met Christine Buray through a 48-hour film festival that was the first, I think that was the first project I ever did here. Wow. And she was the writer. Right. And so we just really hit it off and really connected. And I remember her saying she felt bad. She was like, we have this great actress and we're going to paint her in this neon green and make her a zombie that doesn't even speak in real English language. Wow. She was like, I'll make it up to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she did. And she did. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
I love that.
But it was still fun, and that was kind of really how we first got connected. And like I said, just hit it off, and she's amazing. And so I came to her and said, okay, I've got this idea for a script. I've got some things that I know to page. I got some ideas for scenes. Right. Would you come on and help me co-write it? And she agreed. So that was amazing. And she had said at the time, I don't know if she might correct you if I'm wrong now, but at the time she had said it was one of the smoothest co-writing experiences that she'd had, and that it was the quickest from page to screen that she's ever done. So because we got it done, and then we started shooting. And we got David Weiss to actually shoot it and produce it as well. So, and he is such a generous and amazing guy. He loves to help and to teach, and he knew that I wanted to direct and be a huge part of the film, which I was. I casted it. I co-wrote it with Christine, and I helped write the music. It has an original song with a friend of mine out of Nashville, Kristen Ford. She is a singer-songwriter there. And so we talked and came up with a lot of the lyrics together, and she would send me tracks of just the music and see if I wanted anything added or not. So we got that accomplished, and I did crafty and kind of everything on set for that. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So was that Did you have to hire her to do that, or because she was a friend and you already had a relationship, she was contributing to the project?
Yeah, she just was
cool.
inspired by the project, and you know, it was also a way to get a song of hers heard too. She has like 15 albums or something on Spotify. She's great.
Wow.
You should check her out. But yeah, it was just amazing. We had actually met on the set of the feature film that I did that we shot in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But yeah, but David Wise agreed to come on and help with Deployed, and he taught me so much too. And he, you know, didn't have to, you know, he could have been like, you know, I'll shoot it and I'm getting the credit, I'm not showing you anything, you know, and he's just not that guy. He really, you know, fostered, you know, and mentored and helped me learn so much about how to be a good director. And I got to sit in the editing room, and I was a part of the editing process. And so, it was just amazing. All the people that ended up wanting to help and come on board for Deploy, because we really didn't have a very big budget at all. We did have I had some connections with some military community liaison people who did help fund it. But it still wasn't, you know, most people worked for way, way less or volunteered just to be a part of it. So, and it's done well in festivals and won some awards, and I got a Best Actress award for it. So that was fun. And then the next one, we actually did another one that Christine directed. I think it was her directorial debut. It's called Where I Keep You.
Yes.
And I was the lead in that.
Yes.
Great, beautiful film.
Yes. Who was the male lead that was in that with you?
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember his name.
Bruce Briggs. Whew, I was like,
Briggs?
yes. I was I was like, don't forget his name right now.
No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I haven't seen him in anything else.
Yeah, he's great. He's also in The Headliner that they shot.
Oh, sure.
Oh, he is in The Headliner. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember now.
So he was fantastic to work with too. And then I executive produced and acted in a film out in Los Angeles with a group out there, my friend Rosalind Real. And it was part of the LA 48, which is like a whole different monster from the Omaha 48.
Okay, what makes it different?
So here in Omaha and in smaller film markets in general, I feel like everyone is kind of forced to wear a lot of hats. And so we all do a lot of different jobs on set. In LA, everyone only does a specific job. And so here for a 48, you know, you can get away with having like 4 people on crew.
Right.
And you're good to go.
Okay.
In LA, it ended up we had like 20 people or something on set for this 48 project because we needed, you know, everyone only did certain jobs and that's what they do. So it's just different in that way in that market.
So I wonder if in LA, if you don't find someone to fill those 20 different roles, does that mean that doesn't happen?
Yeah.
I mean, so nobody's putting on a multiple hat out of necessity.
Not usually.
You
not
find
usually.
that
now, I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. That was just my experience.
Sure.
And then, you know, permits there and trying to shoot places. You have to be really strategic and, you know, mainly use, you know, someone's private property, but even if you're outside and they see you shooting, you know, they could shut you down. So luckily that didn't happen to us.
Yeah.
Did they pull permits for the whole? Do you know?
No.
No. Okay. All right. And you know what I'm getting at, again, it's back to the, you know, you're doing this 24/7. This is your full-time job. And that, you know, obviously LA is a whole different animal. The industry's there. There are multiple, you know, resources compared to here. But still that idea, you know, of the purpose of making the film, the commitment to making the film, like you've talked about, you gaining experience. So you've done these 40 projects. You've got that much experience on set, completing projects, doing those kinds of things. It still seems to me like a lot of projects I see, one of the things I've noticed, in particular, like with the Omaha Film Festival, a lot of people were talking about distribution deals and selling the films and making the films profitable. And I'm wondering, like a 48-hour challenge, again, it's LA, but with 20 plus people committed to the crew, is that the kind of project that they try and like make money off of or get a return for? It's just an experience kind of thing.
It's just an
passion
experience.
project?
It's a
Okay.
networking opportunity.
Sure.
I think is really the biggest gain that you get out of it. And you have this. You're not allowed to pay people for the 48s. That's the whole thing. Is that it's supposed to be people just using their time and talents.
So it requires people to volunteer their time.
Correct.
And
Correct.
is that the case both places? And wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So, to my understanding, that's always been the case, that everyone volunteers their time and talent.
I see. So it's more of an exercise. It's not really about creating a film as a profitable.
Right. It's more
property.
of
It's more
that
just an
community networking, getting to work with people you might not have
Gotcha.
ever worked with before. And, the benefit of you have a produced project in 48 hours.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, that's
And so
not
a lot
nothing,
of people
right?
like that, because then they can add it to their reel or, put it on their website, especially, if it's good, which, you hope that it is, and that's the goal. So
20 plus people. I mean, I'd be, hey, come on, you need to step this up a little bit. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. So, talk a little bit about the feature that you produced.
Okay, so I was an associate producer on that. Okay. And I was the lead in the feature. It's called Valentine Crush.
Valentine Crush. Where do I haven't seen this.
So it's still in the festival run.
Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm. And it is a psycho thriller about a roller derby girl who meets her biggest fan. And what happens from there is a pretty wild ride.
So you're the lead, the roller derby girl?
Vicky Valentine in
right,
the flesh.
All right. Did you have roller derby experience before that? Or was
So,
this
fun
your-
story.
right.
No.
That is fun story.
Does that really surprise you, though, that I wasn't a roller derby girl?
Wow.
But
I'm also not a roller derby girl. So.
but you're not?
No, I'm not. No. It's my acting, right? Yeah. No.
But I've skated since I was young.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
And
that's
so,
the trickiest part.
Yeah. So, but I'd never done actual roller derby. And that was one of my favorite parts about doing the film, was getting to work with and meet real life roller derby gals.
Oh, yeah.
And just getting to be a part of that culture, and just how accepting and fun they are. And I only had one skate rehearsal. I mean, before I went up to shoot, for like 2 months leading up, I skated a mile around my neighborhood like every day, just to make sure that I was in shape and that I felt comfortable on my skates for whatever, would come up with shooting.
Yeah.
And it was a lot.
Those little ramp. A friend of my wife worked with a gal there was a roller derby team here in Omaha. So I got to see something.
Yeah,
Man,
there
that's
is.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had one skate rehearsal before we started shooting, to where I had to learn, how to hit, how to fall, and kind of the whole rules and the point and the jammers and how that works. And it was really fun. It was just all the gals were so nice, and they were so helpful. And again, just those relationships that I met, through that experience have just been really cool and an invaluable part of that. Nice. So. Yeah.
So you say this film is still in the festival circuit?
It is. We shot the feature in 8 long days and nights.
Sioux Falls, you said, right?
Yeah, and some of the days that we were shooting, I mean, we were working like 20 out of 24 hours a day. Wow. It was wild. Wow. That part, very, very, very tough. Wow. I was in skates one day for over 12 hours, and I barely even stopped, because once you stop, you kind of start sweating more.
Sure.
So I just kept rolling, and I rolled through, went to the bathroom in roller skates, came out, I rolled through the lunch line, came back. Like, it was for a solid 12 hours I was in skating. Wow. So it really took a lot of endurance. I would say it's the hardest role physically that I've ever done, and it will probably be the hardest work that I will ever do.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, because professional, SAG sets don't allow that.
Right.
You can't work that long, and overnight and all of that. So it was really, really tough. So
I just keep coming up with more questions. I
Yay!
have so many more
Keep 'em
questions.
coming.
Right?
Yeah.
So as a producer, I'm curious to know who wrote the story.
So Leah Simmons, she is an actual roller derby gal out of Sioux Falls, and it's interesting because she was always kind of told, you need to make your female characters more likable, and make them this way, and she kind of just threw all that out the window on this. Vicky Valentine is a very salty, very she's not very likable. Okay. And so that was really interesting for me to play. She is so different from my personality.
I was going to say, so much for the kindness.
Yeah. She is so different from me. And so that was really fun. But yeah, it was one heck of an experience.
Well, I was going to ask how, like, if somebody wrote it and then had to find a roller derby ring or something, but if she was already,
she had lots of connections and was on a team, so a lot of her actual teammates were in the film and they were part of the roller derby and bout days, and so there were a lot of people in Sioux Falls from that community that really came together and made it happen. I mean, we made it happen.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So you mentioned SAG. Are you SAG? Are you trying to get
I am SAG eligible.
You're SAG eligible.
So, and in the Midwest, that's kind of a little bit of a sweet spot because we don't have a whole lot of union projects here.
Right.
And so right now I can work both union and non-union projects. So
only because you're SAG-y, or if you're full SAG, can you still do that? Or do you have to work only on union projects?
So it's supposed to be only on union projects.
Okay.
There are some exceptions, but it's, once you're union, you're supposed to be on union only projects.
Okay. All
So.
right.
Talk a little bit about the process of, becoming SAG-y is the term, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, SAG eligible.
SAG eligible. So talk to me a little bit about the process of becoming SAG eligible. What's involved?
It's all kind of a mystery.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I am SAG. I want
So what happens is you train, you audition, you audition, you train, you audition. And then you audition for a project that is SAG, and they actually pick you. And so once you work your first actual SAG production and have speaking lines, then you become SAG eligible. And then you can work both until your next SAG production. If it is in a union state that's not a right to work state, then you're a forced join to the union after that, after you work that second one. Okay. But if the second one is in a right to work state like Nebraska, you're not a forced join.
So it's still optional if you've worked
Correct.
on your second SAG.
And eventually you want to be a part of the union because the union does a lot for actors, and it's one of those things that you should be if you're getting enough and that much union work. That's something that you would want to be part of. But if you're in a market where it doesn't quite make sense, maybe you wait a little bit and try to hold on to that area where you can do both.
Right.
So
Is the process for finding projects different for you in terms of looking for union or non-union projects? Like, is it all kind of the same wherever you find projects, bulletin board network, or are there specific ones that are going to be union projects, and I know these are likely to be?
Well, I mean, when casting, or like my agents, send stuff, it says whether they're union or not union. So, and then it just depends on where it's shooting and what the project is, what the role is going to be, whether or not you know for sure if you want to do it or not.
Right.
But I think, you just audition for it all, and then, if you get it, you make that decision.
Sure. And I realized that I skipped a step. Your agent. You have an agent. You have multiple agents?
Yes.
Different markets? Okay, so that makes a big difference, right? You're not out there trying to find work for yourself. Tell me a little bit about...
Well, I mean, I'd say 95% of the work that I've done so far, I've gotten on my own. And that's just through networking and through connections and people that I know, people that,
Even with the agents?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, and I just got my Los Angeles agent. So to be determined there, we just started working together really this year. I mean, we signed everything at the end of last year, but there's not a whole lot of work being filmed in December. So
Okay, sure.
at least not
Here, yeah.
professionally, you know. So
Yeah, right.
people are kind of on holiday at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fascinated about the process of finding agents, and then that you're still finding 95% of your own work.
Yeah.
Is that common? Like, do you
know,
know?
I think it just depends on where you are in the market you're in.
Okay.
And here, there not being a huge market, I think it's really important. You know, no one's going to work harder for you than you.
Absolutely true.
And again, like those skills and that, you know, marketing and networking and the things that I acquired from all the things that I did previously to this, you know, have kind of been that X factor for me. And have really helped me to get in and find the places and the people and make the connections and then just genuinely like love on people and like make genuine connections with people. I think that's like the best
that's
way
great
that you
advice.
can go about anything. You know, it's not always about the film, it's not always about the work, it's about the people. And you know, for me that was, you know, I'm a Christian and that's, my faith is a really important part of my life. And you know, there's people ask, oh well, do you do this kind of film work or this kind of film work? And you know, I pray about everything before I accept it. And there have been some that I was really unsure about, like language-wise. Even the roller derby one. I mean, she's salty, she's foul-mouthed, she uses language that I don't use in my personal life. Right. And so, you know, I kind of thought, like, wow, God, like, how is this? How's that right there? How's that word? How's that going to bring you glory? Yeah. You know, I don't really understand that. And for me, God just kind of said, don't put me in that box. It's not about the words that are on the script right here. It's about the people you're going to meet, the relationships that you're going to have, what happens on set, behind set. So that was kind of where it fell for me on that one. Sure. And I think that every case is going to be different. Yeah. And, you know, God brings you in and out of seasons for different reasons in your life. And there may be a time where I do turn down work like that. But for whatever reason, that was in my life for that season and that reason. Right, yeah. And sometimes we don't always understand it.
Yeah, right, yeah. I get that.
Yeah. That's powerful. That's an important part, especially, I think for a lot of people, staying true to their gut and whatever inner resources that they use. Because there are a lot of roles. I see people who get pigeonholed or end up doing work that they may not necessarily have, may not be beneficial to where they want to go. You know, again, part of having a goal, having a plan, all that. It's very intentional and impressive.
And people ask me, you know, why haven't you done any faith-based stuff? You know, you haven't done any faith-based projects. Sure. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It's kind of wild, right? But I really feel like I don't want to preach to the choir. That's my biggest thing. I think there's enough of that. Yeah. And so I don't, again, like want to be pigeonholed and that's the only kind of stories that I tell. Right. I think I will tell some stories like that and be a part of them. My heart is there, and that is a passion of mine. But I don't think it's the only kind of stories that I will tell. And, you know, that brings up, you know, God laid it on my heart to have my own production company. And he laid the name on my heart and everything, and heart. It's called Heartland Honey Productions. Okay. Wow. So HUNNY.
There you go. Nice.
And it's Films with Heart. Okay. A place where pink and kindness are always in style.
Oh, I love it.
So there's lots of great branding and stuff there that we're going to do with that. And I'll fall under HHP, which has a little nice ring to it. Yeah. And so, you know, that Films with Heart, I really want to do films that have that heart line, that feel good, and, you know, that still exemplify and show the struggle of everyday life, you know, and humanity. And maybe they're not all tied with a pretty pink bow at the end, because life isn't that way, and life is messy and not not always perfect or tied with that pretty pink bow.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of pretty pink bows in my life, so I'm glad to hear you say that, because I'm running short on it'd be nice to go home sometime though and see that and be like, no, that's tied off. That's
so I mean I do really want to produce films that have that feel good through line, though. I'm really sick of dark stuff, y'all.
Yeah.
There is a lot of dark, and I've been a part of a lot of dark projects, and that are, dealt with abuse and, childhood sexual abuse in my film called Under the Willow Tree. Wow. And then there was a lot of abuse and violence against women in the roller derby film. Like heavy subjects. The film that I did out in LA called Fly for the 48 was about abuse and adoption and foster situations. And so I've done a lot of those heavy subjects, which are it is important, and I think that getting those stories told and seen is important. But I'm kind of on right now, and I'll still do those. I'll still act in those, if the role feels right and if it's something that is meant for me. Yeah. But as far as producing under the Heartland Honey production brand, I think I'm looking for those feel good stories. Those more like Ted Lasso and Shrinking. Yeah, right. Sure, I want to feel good after I watch something.
Absolutely,
so I want to make more, more light in the world. I feel like we have enough darkness, so I'd like to see more light on screen.
Yeah, I don't know what the trend is, or if it goes in phases, but these dark, heavy, deep topics are. They're in fashion,
Someone said to me, that's interesting that you say that, because I've been thinking a lot about that and how that does seem to be the case, that's all that you turn on. Any of the streaming services, they're all very dark, very violent, heavy.
Like that.
And someone said to me just recently, I believe it was at the film festival, they said, well, you know that why that is. Oh, no, it wasn't at the film festival. I know who it was, but I'm not gonna say who it was. But they're a filmmaker too. But they said, well, you know why that is, right? I said, well, no. I said, people aren't allowed to be funny anymore.
Why not? I mean, really?
People get offended.
Cancel culture.
Yeah. And so I hadn't really thought about that. And I don't know if that's true or not. That's just that was just an interesting perception that someone shared.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because when there was 3-4 years ago now, when we started getting into that transition of darker stories, I remember one of the big ones that stuck out was Warner Brothers Joker. So I think that is where we kind of hit that pivotal peak between transitioning a bunch of this whatever was in the industry into more darker stories. Because I remember reading an article once that was saying how comparing why it hit box office numbers the way it did, and it actually and attributed it back to that was like the peak where like the cancel culture kind of environment was hitting, and so it kind of hit a shockwave effect where we hit
and
all
it did
of these
really
darker
well,
stories, and it did really well.
Then everyone wanted to follow suit.
So studios who used to produce all these comedies in the early 2000s, so like Rush Hour, like what's another one? Bad Boys, Hot Fuzz, like those kinds of movies. They all started transitioning into more darker stories to project and keep having that kind of revenue that Joker kind of got too. On top of the whole superhero phases and that kind of thing, they're kind of wanting to go back there. But even then, they're kind of adding more things to make it more lighthearted, more family friendly, and that kind of thing. But it's interesting to say that, because I remember that article comes to mind of comparing. It
is interesting. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily believe that, but I just thought it was an interesting perception that someone.
Sure, I mean it's valid. It's his opinion. Sure. Yeah. That is for me. It's funny that I haven't seen Joker yet, and I remember going through. I was kind of excited to see it, but then the whole Heath Ledger thing with and taking on that dark role, and then kind of the effect. I was a big Heath Ledger fan. I think a lot of people are. And for me, it's kind of like, man, that's a lot of, you're talking about so much weight to carry as an actor, as an artist,
Absolutely. I miss the 10 Things I Hate About You, Heath Ledger,
The Knight's Tale.
Legally Blonde is like one of my favorite movies of all time.
Sure,
I love me some Reese. Reese is she's a huge inspiration for me. And so, her, and she, has her own production company now, Hello Sunshine Productions.
Nice.
And so maybe Reese with Hello Sunshine Productions and Kate with Heartland Honey Productions will team up one day.
Never know. You never know.
Yes, Reese, please.
Yeah. I love it. I love that you're taking on the responsibility and props to anybody who's doing that, of keeping things more lighthearted, on the positive, on the up and up. I had a conversation with my dad recently, but I at this point in my life, even though I like to consume, I still consume art films and things. I'm really just trying to escape. And I'm really just trying to, latch myself to a positive story, something that's going to make me feel good, something totally entertaining, whatever it is. I don't want a heavy,
I think a lot
story.
of people are feeling that way more and more. Like, there's enough darkness in the world. There's enough darkness in your workday. There's enough darkness in life and situations and struggles and suffering that we all go through as humans, through the human experience, that it is nice to just have something that's like, there's something,
Right, yeah. You don't feel, I have to go home now and talk to my kid about this whole No. So, I love that. And I think that's good. We need more of that. What projects are you working? Are you working on anything now you can talk about?
Yeah, so I actually got cast in a feature film that's coming up. I think we're shooting towards fall maybe of this year. It's called Until the Music Fades. It's written and going to be directed by Kevin Isaacson, who is with I Like Ike Films out of Iowa. Yeah. And it is a story about a struggling musician who battles his own demons and is also battling ALS, which is a terrible neurodegenerative disease. And, that piece of it, the story, especially like my family, close family friends lost their child to ALS. Wow, that's tough. And so that's really, I wanted to be a part of telling this story as kind of homage to, them and their family. And I just think that it's going to be a powerful, but it's a good story. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that coming up. I've got another short that I was asked to be in, that Ryan Hollis, they had one in the film festival this year. Oh, okay. Do you remember what it was? I cannot remember the name of it right now, but there were some epic fight scenes, and it was called Channels. And they flipped through and went through.
Oh, is that the one Brandon was in?
I think so.
Brandon?
Yes.
It was hilarious.
Yes.
I didn't get to see it, and I still haven't seen it.
That was hilarious. Yeah. So we're doing a short that we're filming sometime, I think in July. Okay. That'll be a couple days of a shoot, and then I'm hoping to get a short filmed this year as well. All right. Yeah, I have one about it's a pretty crazy story, but it's basically it's a story about a Eucharistic miracle. I don't know if you have heard of those or what they are in the Catholic faith. I'm not Catholic. Okay. And you're not supposed to take communion in the Catholic Church unless you're Catholic. Okay. So and they believe that the bread and the wine actually turns to body and blood when you take it. And then there's these instances, you can look it up online, about where they actually turn and they fall on the floor and they're pieces of flesh or whatever. So
sure.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's a story that I want to tell. That that's all I'll say about it right now.
All right, cool. And you say you're hoping to get that one in this year as well?
Yeah, I would like to get that in this year. So it'll be more of a true short, probably somewhere between like 5, maybe 7 minutes long. And it'll really be about the cinematography is going to be like the main drive of telling the story. The imagery is going to be really important, and the lighting. So I'm excited about it. So hopefully we can get that done. And then I did get asked to be a part of a project, a feature that's going to be pretty big. I don't know if it'll start shooting by the end of this year or not, but all of that's in the works and pre-production right now, so I can't really say anything about it. But it'll be big, and it'll be really great. So
nice.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before we started talking, we have 2 films in pre-production, 2 short films in pre-production this year, and this is kind of our first. We did the one internal project last year, but this is our first out into the community and collaborating with other people. And one of the things that is important to us is paying people involved, talent and crew. And I'm curious to know, my experience is very limited, obviously, especially compared to yours, even though I've been here a lot longer. There doesn't seem to be much paid work, right? There's a lot of volunteering, doing favors and stuff, and I totally get that as an artist, how that happens, but I also see how that becomes an expectation and a mentality. And so even as a creative and an artist myself, I feel one of the very first steps I need to take is making sure that I'm paying other artists for their time and their talent. So the projects you talk about, are any of them paid? Are all of them paid? How does that work?
Yeah,
for you?
and a lot of the projects I'm in are paid, and then the ones that I've produced, now if they're 48 hour, they're not.
Right, sure.
That's a whole, you're getting paid on a different level with those.
Yeah.
But the other ones that I've done, we've paid, especially crew.
Okay.
And actors, it's, a lot of times it's been actors that really needed footage.
Right.
But moving forward, with anything under the Heartland Honey Productions, we'll be paying, and I'm hoping to run. The plan is to do features,
Right.
And hoping to run those under the SAG union. So
and their breakdown, because I'm studying this a lot, but their breakdown. I think it's either 25 or 35,000, and under is a student film, right? Like that's the little tiny thing, and I'm like, 25 or 35,000. Obviously for our studio, that's not a big deal, but in terms of the number of people I see making films and wanting to get into films and all the independent cinema, the film festival itself had 66 short films, I think, that they ran.
Yeah.
That it has an effect, that mentality, because where I come from with graphic design, photography, there's this, it's almost like people strive to be the starving artist, right? I can't tell you how many times clients have asked me as a photographer, I have to pay for this? It's like, that's not obvious. So I just find it interesting, especially with film work, all the different moving parts, all the different pieces, all the different places you have to turn. So many people do that, as a favor for
and I think that 1 or 2 times it's okay.
Yeah, I get that.
I think there's some filmmakers here in town that just continue to do it for the sake of we're just practicing, or we're just helping everybody get footage, and we're just helping everybody get better. And I feel like they've, not only are they not paying, but they're also requiring a lot of rehearsals and time that's unpaid. And I just feel like that's a huge disrespect to people's time.
That hurts them,
and taking advantage of what they need, or their generosity, or the fact that they think that, well, I can't get paid, so I might as well just do it. I don't like when I see people taking advantage of that. And so, that's not something that I want to do. And when I have had productions where people aren't getting paid, then I make sure I don't take advantage of their time.
Yes.
And I
right.
make sure that they have a product that they can use.
Right. Absolutely.
And again, that I don't take advantage of their time. I don't require a bunch of extra rehearsals. I trust that they're going to do the work.
Right.
And I know the people. I usually know who I want to work with before I work with people.
Sure.
Everyone has different opinions in the market, but my opinion is, since especially for actors, it is kind of a starving market here. I don't want to audition people against one another, especially for paid roles, because that just creates tension, I feel like, between people.
Okay.
It's already hard enough to be an actor, so I usually know who I want to work with, so I'm not creating this, everyone's pining for this one paid role. Get it, and then, my friend got it. I mean, you're happy for your friend, that got it, but it's still hard,
That's
it
an
creates
interesting
that.
perspective, yeah. And I wonder,
And not everyone agrees with me.
Well, it's interesting. I'm interested because we're doing that. We've, and I don't have a good sense of how much of the market is paid work versus how much isn't paid work. One of the things that we committed to, obviously, is paying people who are involved. And then in terms of auditions, letting people know either way, whether you made it or you didn't make it, because of the time, like you say, the emotional investment into auditioning. I hadn't thought about the piece of
like I said, not everyone agrees with me. I think
it's a good.
I think
it's an
because I'm an
perspective.
actor first as well, that really hits home a lot for me.
If you don't get the role and your friend got it, that's paid work.
And
there's
again,
not
starving,
a lot to have.
and then it just feels like you're pitting a small market against each other a little bit. We're still rooting for each other. It's not that. It's just, man, I got to eat too, kind of thing.
Yeah, I understand.
And
that.
so it being in such a small market, as an actor myself, I personally, for doing film work, that, when it comes to being under Heartland Honey production, I will not audition people because I feel like, as an actor and a producer, and I've directed and written too, but especially as an actor and producer in this film market, I feel like it's my responsibility to know people's talent and what they are capable of, and that I shouldn't have to audition them in this small space. But that's just me, because I am an actor. Right. I am involved in the community. I do know people's work. I do know who I want to work with. I do know whose personalities mesh well together with mine. And so, for me, that works. That might not work for everybody, but for me, that works.
And in our case, we don't.
Yeah.
We aren't known. We don't know many people. And one of the things that my kid, I have 3 kids. They're all involved in drama in one form or another. And my oldest is in the drama at high school. They just wrapped up a play. He's really involved, and now he's getting into show choir. So I'd never heard him sing before. I'd seen him act.
I love show choir.
He's singing in this Addams Family. You guys, he's got a really good voice. Awesome. I have no clue where it came from. But the show choir,
I love it.
The director of the show choir basically said to him, "How dare you not audition? You're auditioning, and you don't have to audition. You're in."
Wow.
And so I'm really proud of it. But wow. Discovering new talent, like for us, I don't know who's out there. I want to see who's out there. I want to find new people, and we're already running into situations where, I found it easier to find a trained animal in some cases than the people that we're looking for, because the market is so dry here. I don't understand why it seems, there's even with the casting call we put out, or maybe people aren't used to casting calls. Maybe that's it.
Well, they're not training. People aren't training here. That's the problem. That's what I said. That's why I think training is so important. And a lot of people aren't training here. But all of that goes back to really no fault of everyone's own. There's no money here.
The industry is.
There's no money here.
Yeah.
Why would you train for something that you're not going to get paid for here?
It's like any other industry. You're not going to, I don't know, train horses. Or maybe they do that here. I got to pick a better analogy. There's some analogy that you don't want to do here that's really funny, and so we'll pretend I said that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because even with some of the people we've talked to, so far, they're on their way out of town. There are plenty of people we've reached out to from Omaha who are out of town, and they've built their career out of town, and they're happy that things are bubbling in Omaha, but it's kind of like,
Yeah, as far as actually being able to survive here, we have maybe 2 to 3, couple $1 million films that come in each year to shoot, but that's not enough to live.
No.
Especially
when
if
you're extras and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have, some kind of supplemental income, then it's really, really hard. And I love Nebraska film, and I always say it's the house that built me.
Nice.
So
That's
Nebraska
right.
film will always be my home film community, like no matter what. And even if the state doesn't put things in place in the legislature with incentives that make it an actual viable film market, and and I do have to leave, it'll still always be my film home, and I'll do whatever I can to come back and shoot, or pull people from here to shoot, and do whatever I can to lift the community up and lift the people up here that helped lift me up. And then I just really enjoy lifting others up as well, and pouring into new filmmakers or students and young people. I was asked to speak at Creighton this past year, and that was just such an incredible experience. And then I also taught at the Off Academy, and that was just like, those kids were so amazing, and I really enjoy that part, and being able to help others, as other people have helped me a lot. So I always want to. It's been paid forward. I want to pay it back, pay it forward, all the things.
Well, remember that when you and Reese are up there and you have a big production company, be like, we have it on tape.
Mouth.
Where is it on tape?
Yeah,
we have
from
it
your
on
mouth
tape.
to God's ears.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. That's fantastic. Anything else going on you want to talk about, or anything we haven't touched on? You got a lot going on.
That's a good.
Yeah, that's not like you need more. That's all you're doing? No, I'm kidding.
My husband is deployed currently. He's been gone since October to the Middle East.
So we thank both of you for that.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thank you.
His service and for the sacrifice.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I know he does too. So, but he is he's about as close to perfect as it comes, as a husband, as a man. Okay. I don't know what I did to deserve this guy, but he's incredible. And so I love you, babe. I just want to thank you so much for all your support, and I can't wait to see you soon. He's coming home here in the next 3 weeks.
So. Oh, wow. Good for you. All right. Yeah. How long have you been deployed?
Since October. That's what I just said. Yeah. Wow. So missed all the holidays, and Valentine's Day, both of our birthdays, New Year's, Easter. Yeah. So it's so Deployed has never really gotten, other than it did screen at the Omaha Film Festival in 2021. Okay. It was accepted and screened. We filmed it in 2020, which was wild. Most people got shut down during 2020, and I always kind of feel bad saying this, but I'm like, professionally, it was a really great year for me.
Yeah, no, hey, there are plenty of people who benefited,
But not personally. Personally, it was a really tough year because my husband was also deployed then.
Dang.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and during the shoot of Deployed, I was about to drop it way down, y'all, sorry. During the shoot of Deployed, I'm super close with my family. I have 2 sisters, and my dad and my mom, and in the middle of production on Deployed, my mom suddenly passed away tragically. So that was a whole thing. Really, really tough. And then I, drove the 36 hours back to Tennessee. I spoke at her funeral, which how do you ever prepare for something like that, right? And then, stayed for the next day. And then we started the drive back because we were shooting. We got back on a Thursday night, and we went into production again that Friday. And it was, I knew that my mom, she was my first and biggest fan. And I knew that she would not have wanted me to halt production on her behalf. So with the help of my incredible team, like David and Christine, and all the people that we had on board, we were able to push through and persevere. And we have a finished product and it's screened and it's been in festivals. And so it will always mean more to me than people could ever know, because of all that happened during that. And yeah, so it pulls at my heartstrings and will always be something super special. And the fact that people like it is really cool. So with all that said, it never really got a screening that we could do, publicly, where people who missed the festival or, it's only screened at the festival. But I was talking about Under the Willow Tree that touched on the struggle of unresolved childhood trauma and abuse. And so I'm in talks with different women's shelters and stuff to potentially do fundraising with that film as well. So
Have you talked to Heartland Family Service?
No.
It'd be a great place to not start, but go.
Okay.
Big nonprofit here in town. They do a couple different gala events each year, fundraisers.
Yeah, because I've been to the Rejuvenating Women gala and really am a fan of that organization and what they've got going on there. They harbor and house survivors of human trafficking.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's what an amazing program, and the stories that I've gotten to hear from the women at the gala. So that's one I'm really passionate about continuing to support. But I'll definitely like to reach out to the other one too.
I mean, not to keep harping on the business aspect of it, but it's an opportunity for filmmakers to tie it to another cause and use that to generate awareness, to help drive, funds for them. I mean, there are all these different opportunities for people to just get creative and branch out. And I think, even individually, all those kinds of efforts go somewhere towards creating this industry that we all know isn't here, that's hurting everybody, right? So in some ways, I'm from Omaha, I'm born here. I've been here a long time, and I've seen lots of different creative communities and movements do the same. We need to put ourselves on the map, and then it doesn't happen, and then we disappear. And there is something we can do about it, right? I mean, these little efforts, if people keep doing that and get in the habit of doing it, at some point things will line up, and it'll have a bigger impact. Like the Joker film, that strike. It'll have a bigger impact than you think. So I love to hear about things like that.
Well, as your resident Heartland honey,
yes, ma'am.
I'm on a mission to try to do stuff like that. I mean, that is part of where my heart is. Like I said, giving back, loving on people genuinely, and for that, charities have always been something that I have been a part of or supported, and so that's something that I want to continue to do and would like to continue to do through my film work too. I love it, yeah. And I mean, I guess something else, a verse that I've really been leaning on lately is from the Psalm 78, 72, I believe. And it's talking about, the psalmist is talking about leadership when it comes to, he's using a shepherd as an example. And it just says, in talking about good leadership, is he cared for them with a true heart and led them with skillful hands. And those are the kind of filmmakers that I want to associate with. Yeah. That's the kind of filmmaker that I want to be myself, someone who cares for people with a true heart, and then hones and honors the skills that they're, have been given, God-given, and uses those skills to lead people on set, and then, lead people in life too, I mean, it's live that example as much as you possibly can. So, that's just something that's I've really been clinging to a lot lately. That verse has been something that's been leading me a lot.
I think that's a great verse, by the way. I think it's
Yay!
Good for you. Yeah, I grew up on the Psalms, so so it's great book.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the way throughout. Great book. Yeah, good stuff.
Fantastic.
Amen.
All right. Well, it's a great place to wrap things up.
Yes.
Kate Robertson, Pryor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you all. This was great. Yeah. So much fun.
This is wonderful.
To donate, scan the QR code and give what you can. We greatly appreciate your support.